The sun was a brilliant, mocking diamond in the sky, reflecting off the windows of the Grand Legacy Hotel. It should have been the most beautiful day of my life. I, Ilara Vance, stood in a gown of cascading ivory silk, my hand meant to be held by the man who was currently staring at the rooftop as if the world were ending. Perhaps for him it was. Beneath the skirts of the woman on the ledge, a dark, sinister stain had already bloomed, turning the white fabric a gruesome crimson. Her sobs were a raw, tearing sound, filled with a theatrical grief that in this moment only I knew was a lie. Her body swayed, a delicate, broken doll on the precipice. I turned my head not to look at the spectacle, but at my almost husband, Julian Thorne. His profile was sharp with a panic that felt like a physical blow. His fingers, usually so steady, were rubbing together in a frantic, unconscious rhythm, and his entire body was a tightly coiled spring of tension. In that single crystalline moment, the world tilted on its axis, and memory crashed over me like a tidal wave. I remembered the cold metal of the car, the blinding headlights, the shattering glass. I remembered the newspaper headlines, the vicious online comments, my father's still form in a hospital bed, my mother's vacant eyes. I remembered Julian and Serafina, radiant and in love at their own lavish wedding, while my world lay in ashes. I had been reborn, brought back to the very day that had been the beginning of my end. Just as Julian made to run, a desperate lunge toward his damsel in distress, I didn't think. I acted. My hand shot out, my fingers closing around his forearm with a strength that surprised us both. "Julian, where are you going?" He flinched, his gaze snapping to me, irritation flashing in his stormy gray eyes. "Can't you see someone's about to jump? I'm going to help." I tightened my grip, my nails digging into the fine wool of his suit jacket. In my previous life, after he had run off, he hadn't returned for a long time. And when he did, he was carrying Serafina Reed in his arms, her face buried in his chest, not even sparing me a glance. The ambulance had left, a silent, screaming accusation, and I had been left alone to face the smirks and whispers, to deal with the ruins of what was supposed to be our wedding. At the time, I had been shell-shocked, wanting only to hear his explanation before handling the fallout. But I never got the chance. A carefully edited video had gone viral, branding me the villain. I was the homewrecker, the other woman who had torn apart a true love, forcing the real fiancé to attempt suicide and causing her to lose her child. With a life supposedly lost, the male lead had a change of heart. The prodigal son returned to the arms of his true love, and I, the wicked mistress, lost everything. Overnight, I became the punchline of my own wedding, a national disgrace. I had begged them on my knees to tell the truth. Serafina, no longer the fragile girl on the rooftop, had tilted my chin with a mocking smile. "You think someone like you could compete with me for Julian? Try looking in a mirror. All of this is what you deserve." And Julian, standing behind her, had simply said, "You heard her. I've only ever loved Serafina. A pawn. I had been a pawn in their twisted game of love, my life and my family's lives nothing more than set dressing for their dramatic reconciliation." "Let go of me, Ilara," Julian snarled, trying to shake me off. "You know that girl on the rooftop?" I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Why is she calling me a homewrecker? Why is she accusing me of killing her child? Don't you think you owe me an explanation?" His eyes darted around at our gathered family and friends. He couldn't admit he knew her. Instead, he did what cowards do, he turned the blame on me. "I don't even know her," he hissed, his voice low so only I could hear. "Who knows what you've done in your past? Maybe you stole someone else's husband and now she's here for revenge. Honestly, this wedding shouldn't happen at all. The Thorne family values character. We would never marry a woman with such low morals." A disbelieving laugh bubbled in my throat. He had pursued me. He had proposed. He had used me to orchestrate this grand wedding solely to lure back Serafina, who had run off while pregnant. And now that his plan had worked, he wanted me to be the scapegoat. "If you don't know her," I said, my voice cold and clear, "then why are you so anxious? Suicide isn't a small matter. I think we should just call the police." I pulled my phone from the small purse my maid of honor, Chloe, was holding. Julian's reaction was instantaneous and violent. He slapped the phone from my hand, sending it clattering across the marble floor. His expression darkened, his voice dropping to an icy whisper. "What the hell are you doing? Are you trying to get her killed?" If anything happens to her, it's on you. Aren't you afraid? Elara, how can you be so heartless? Chloe stepped forward, her face flushed with anger, ready to defend me. I gently pulled her back, my eyes never leaving Julian's. I'm vicious, I repeated, my voice rising so the closest guests could hear. I'm standing here at my own wedding and a stranger storms in, calls me a homewrecker and a murderer, and I shouldn't call the cops? Why not? Even if I put aside her slander to prioritize saving a life, what's wrong with me calling the professionals for help? Isn't that what any sane person would do? He had no comeback. His face twisted in frustration, but instead of backing down he grabbed my wrist, his grip like a vice. I tried to break free, but he only held on tighter. I caught Chloe's eye and gave a subtle nod. She understood immediately. Slipping her own phone from her purse, she melted into the crowd. The police arrived with a swift, professional efficiency that was a stark contrast to the chaos. They began evacuating the onlookers and securing the rooftop. Order was being restored from the mess Julian and Serafina had created. I asked my cousin to take my parents home. They had been through enough. When Julian saw the uniforms, his panic escalated. And Serafina, seeing her dramatic stage being dismantled, quickly scurried down from the rooftop on her own. In the end, we all went to the police station. Julian tried to maintain the charade, to pretend he didn't know the weeping girl sitting across the room. But Serafina cried so hard, so convincingly, that his resolve shattered. Before the officer could even finish his questions, they were in each other's arms, a tragic picture of reunited lovers. I watched them, my heart a cold, hard stone in my chest. Then I stepped forward. "Officer," I said, my voice ringing in the sterile room. "Can I press charges against Julian Thorne for marriage fraud?" I pointed at Serafina. "And I don't know this woman, but she spread lies and slandered me in front of hundreds of people. I want to press charges against her too." Julian rushed to shield Serafina, glaring at me. "Elara, dragging everyone to the police station still isn't enough for you? You'd better watch yourself." I gave him a thin, cold smile. "Officer, as you can see, not only did he deceive me into a fake marriage, he's now threatening me in front of you." With the officer's warning, Julian finally shut up and with great reluctance confessed the truth. He and Serafina had been in love. His mother, Eleanor Thorne, disapproved, believing Serafina came from a troubled family and lacked breeding. She had even offered Serafina $20,000 to leave. Feeling insulted, Serafina had run off, pregnant and furious. Julian, to appease his mother and he admitted to try and smoke Serafina out of hiding, had started dating me. The wedding was the ultimate piece of bait. He never expected her to lose the baby while on the run, or for her to reappear in a blood-stained dress on our wedding day. Only when the official report was filed did I feel the true weight of my rebirth lift slightly. In my previous life I had no evidence, no defense against their lies. Now I had the truth on paper. It was a start. When I got home I told my parents everything. The heartbreak and rage on their faces was a painful thing to witness. My gentle, soft-spoken father used words I had never heard him say, cursing Julian for the monster he was. The nightmare of the wedding was over. But I knew with a chilling certainty that the war had just begun. The morning after the wedding that wasn't. The silence in my apartment was a physical presence. It was broken by the sharp buzz of my new phone. A message from Julian. It wasn't an apology or an explanation. It was an invoice. Itemized with cold, corporate precision, it listed every cost associated with the wedding. The floral arrangements from Petal and Thorn, the 5-tier cake from Le Delice, the string quartet, the venue fee for the Grand Legacy. My share was singled out in a bold red font. My custom-designed Vera Wang gown, the hair and makeup team I'd flown in from New York, the premium open bar upgrade I'd insisted on to please his business associates. It totaled just over $950,000. A note was attached. "As per our initial agreement, these were your responsibilities. Transfer the amount to the account below. Don't delay." Our agreement had been a casual conversation where I, touched by what I thought was his generosity in handling the larger venue costs, had offered to cover the aesthetic details. I had been so eager to build a life with him, to show I wasn't just after his family's money. He had used that against me. Before the acid burn of rage could fully spread, the phone rang. Julian's name flashed on the screen. "You've seen the bill." His voice was cold, devoid of any emotion except impatience. If everything looks correct, transfer the funds. I don't have time for this. I found my voice, though it was tight. We were supposed to get married, Julian. Of course, most of the personal expenses came from my side. And after everything, you have the audacity to send me a bill? There was a rustle and then a female voice, shrill and vicious, cut in. It was Serafina. Alara, how can you be so shameless? You spent the money yourself. Why shouldn't you pay for it? You failed to seduce Julian and now you're trying to scam him? Keep dreaming. If you dare try to skip out, I'll make you regret it. The line went dead. I stood there, my hand trembling around the phone, the sheer, unadulterated gall of them leaving me breathless. They were a perfect match in their wickedness. There was no universe in which I would pay them a single cent. I wanted to see exactly how they planned to make me regret it. The answer came that evening. Chloe called me, her voice panicked. Alara, check your messages. I sent you a link. It's bad. I opened the link. It was a video from the wedding day, posted on a popular gossip site. This time the narrative had shifted. They didn't call me a homewrecker. Now I was the heartless ice queen. The video was masterfully edited. It zoomed in on the moment I grabbed Julian's arm, my face set in determined lines that looked like cruelty in this context. It cut to Serafina on the rooftop, a tiny, tragic figure, then back to me, refusing to let go. The narrator, with a voice dripping with faux concern, spun a tale of a gold-digging socialite obsessed with the Thorn fortune. I had trapped Julian, they claimed, and when a poor, innocent girl's life was in danger, I had coldly prevented my fiancé from helping, terrified of losing my meal ticket. And now, with the wedding failed, I was attempting to extort nearly $1 million from the heartbroken groom. Their faces were carefully blurred. Mine was crystal clear. The comments were a torrent of digital poison. What a monster. She wouldn't even let him save a life. You can see the greed in her eyes. Clinging to her cash cow. $1 million? She's delusional. Hope she rots. In my first life, I had thought the viral video was a tragic accident, a consequence of the chaotic scene. It was only later, through desperate digging, that I discovered the truth. Serafina had orchestrated it all. She had hired the videographer, directed the edits, and paid to boost the video's visibility. She was the director, producer, and star of my public execution. I took a deep, shuddering breath. I would not cry. I would not panic. This time I was ready. My first call was to my cousin, Ben. Ben, I need a huge favor. Can you take Mom and Dad to the lake house? Or better yet, to that villa in Tuscany they've always talked about? Get them out of the country for a few weeks. Alara, what's going on? The news. It's everywhere. I know. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. I need them safe and away from this. Please. He agreed without hesitation. Next, I called my family's lawyer, Mr. Sterling. I forwarded him the invoice and the link to the video. I want to sue for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and fraud. And I want to send a cease and desist regarding this fraudulent invoice. I'll get the paperwork started immediately, Alara. His calm, professional voice was a balm. We'll also file a motion to preserve all their digital records. If they paid to promote that video, we'll find the trail. I assumed my preemptive legal strike would force them to lie low. I was wrong. The very next afternoon, Serafina Reed showed up outside my office building. She was still wearing the same white dress, the bloodstains now a brownish-black along the hem. The moment I stepped out, she threw herself onto the pavement at my feet, sobbing so violently her whole body shook. Miss Vance. I was wrong. Please, I'm begging you, forgive me. Her voice was a theatrical wail. I never meant to ruin your wedding. But I knew Julian first. We were together first, and we were having a baby. She lifted her skirt, revealing her pale thighs. Look, my baby, he didn't even get a chance to see this world. Her voice cracked with a grief that, had I not known the truth, would have shattered me. Please, Miss Vance, if you want to blame someone, blame me. But please return the money to Julian. $1 million isn't a small amount. I'm just an ordinary person. I can't afford it. My eyes scanned the crowd. Just as I expected, several bystanders had their phones out, held a little too steadily, angled a little too perfectly. This was a performance, and I was the unwilling co-star. I tried to pull her up, but she was dead weight, clinging to the concrete. Miss Vance, she sobbed, even though I lost my baby because of you, I don't hate you. I know you only did it because you love Julian too much. So much that you chose the wrong way. I only ask that you give the money back. My child's life should be enough to repay you. And if it's not, then take mine too. I'll pay with my life, okay? She began bowing, kowtowing on the dirty sidewalk. A few older women in the crowd clicked their tongues. Young lady, have some compassion, one chided me. She's already been pushed this far. Just return the money, another joined in. Your family name is already mud. Don't make it worse. They were ganging up, their misplaced sympathy weaponized by Serafina's act. She kept her face hidden from them, but her eyes, when they met mine, were bright with triumphant anticipation. She was waiting for me to snap, to scream, to become the villain she had painted me as. But I had learned my lesson. I would not provide the footage she craved. I waved over 2 security guards from the building's lobby. Please help this young lady to her feet. She seems unwell. As they firmly pulled her up, I stepped forward. I gently took a tissue from my purse and dabbed the mostly fake tears from her cheeks, then smoothed her disheveled hair. My touch was gentle, my voice a soft, warm counterpoint to her hysterics. Miss Reed, I said loud enough for the nearby phones to pick up. Even though my wedding was ruined, I've never once blamed you. In fact, I should be thanking you. I took her hand in mine, my expression one of sincere gratitude. She stared at me bewildered. If it weren't for your brave performance on that rooftop, I continued, my voice dripping with sweet sincerity, how else would I have discovered what a two-faced liar Julian Thorne truly is? On one side he's sneaking around with you, even getting you pregnant. On the other he's proposing to me, pretending he's a devoted, single man. I should thank you for revealing the truth. I smiled, a beautiful, gentle smile that didn't reach my eyes. Serafina panicked. No. It wasn't an act. I wasn't acting. And Julian's not a player. I cut her off. As for the $1 million, that's between me and the Thorne family. It has nothing to do with you. Why burden yourself with something that isn't your responsibility? I then gasped softly, as if a terrible thought had just occurred to me. Julian wouldn't seriously stoop so low as to put all this on you, would he? He's actually trying to make you shoulder that debt. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. I didn't let her speak. Guess I was right, I sighed, shaking my head sadly. He really is a scumbag. But don't worry. I've handed everything over to my lawyer. They'll be in touch with him soon to explain how the law works. You're welcome to sit in and learn something too. Her face darkened into a mask of pure fury. The tide had turned. The onlookers, once firmly on her side, now looked confused, their certainty shaken. The show was over. I asked the guards to clear the area and even politely arranged for a car service to take the fuming Serafina home. Later, through a private investigator I'd already hired, I learned she had a screaming fit in the car, yelling at someone on the phone that the footage was unusable and they'd have to reshoot. The person on the other end, presumably the videographer, demanded payment anyway. Enraged, she smashed her phone against the window. What she didn't know was that while she was having her tantrum, I was already in my apartment, working with a discreet media contact Chloe knew. We had our own footage, shot from a second-story window. We edited it carefully, showing her dramatic collapse, my calm response, and her furious exit. We posted it online, linking it to the very hashtags they had paid to trend. I didn't spend a dime, but I enjoyed the benefits of their expensive viral campaign. I made sure the moment Serafina got a new phone, she'd see her own name on the trending list, right next to mine. This time, the court of public opinion began to shift. Wait, she's thanking the other woman? This is weird. The guy sounds like a total tool. Making his mistress beg for his money? Something's not adding up. The original video felt off. The seeds of doubt were sown. The first battle in the online war was a draw, but I had held my ground. And I was just getting started. The online storm I had unleashed began to swirl in a new direction. The full, unedited clip of my encounter with Serafina, paired with the cold, hard facts of the police report I discreetly hinted at, started to fracture their narrative. The public, fickle as ever, began to dissect Julian and Serafina with the same viciousness they had once reserved for me. So the grieving mother was stable enough to run her own PR campaign? Convenient. Thorne is a coward. Throwing his mistress under the bus to pay his wedding bills? Classy. This feels like a bad telenovela. I'm starting to feel sorry for the bride. That last comment, seeing the word sorry next to my name, was a small, hard-won victory. But I felt no joy, only a cold, focused determination. They had tried to bury me under a mountain of lies. Now I would return the favor with an avalanche of truth. My peace was shattered a few nights later by a pounding on my apartment door. I peered through the peephole to see Julian, his face haggard, his usually immaculate hair disheveled. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I didn't open the door. "Go away, Julian, or I'll call building security." "Alara, please. We need to talk." His voice was raspy, stripped of its usual arrogance. "It's about Emily, about Serafina." Against my better judgment, I cracked the door, leaving the chain on. "Talk." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of genuine distress I might have once fallen for. "All of this, the things she's been doing online, it's my fault. I pushed her to this. Can you please just make a statement? Tell people it was all a misunderstanding? That we're all working it out privately? My mother's blood pressure is through the roof. The board is asking questions. I can't sleep." I stared at him, incredulous. "You want me to clean up your mess? To lie for you? We were this close to being married, Alara," he pleaded, his eyes desperate. "Doesn't that mean anything? There's a saying, a one-day marriage is still 100 days of grace. Just do this for me. Explain things to the netizens and I'll forget the million. Consider it your compensation." The sheer, unadulterated audacity of it stole my breath. Compensation. As if his betrayal and public humiliation were a simple business transaction. I let out a short, sharp laugh that had no humor in it. "Julian Thorne, I had no idea until today just how thick your skin really is." I looked him up and down with open contempt. "You need to stop dreaming in broad daylight. There is absolutely no way I am going to speak on your behalf." Seeing my resolve, his desperation turned to anger. He tried to shove the door, but the chain held. "Alara, don't be a bitch about this. I'm trying to be reasonable." "Security," I called out, my voice echoing in the hallway. The patrolling guard for our floor appeared promptly. I pointed at Julian. "This man is harassing me. Please escort him from the premises." As the guard firmly led a sputtering Julian away, I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart hammering not from fear, but from a furious, righteous energy. He couldn't sleep for a few days? His household was chaotic. In my last life, my entire family was destroyed, and all he did was smirk and say I'd had it coming. It was true. Pain only matters when it's your own. Even without my help, their situation was spiraling. And Julian's next move was truly eye-opening. That night, he went live on a popular social media platform. I watched, sipping a cup of chamomile tea as he sat in what looked like his study, the shelves lined with leather-bound books he'd probably never read. He looked into the camera, his eyes artfully red-rimmed. "I owe everyone an explanation," he began, his voice low and strained. He laid out a carefully revised version of our story. How we'd met on a blind date, how he'd been captivated by my vibrance and intelligence. How he had truly wanted to build a life with me. He choked up several times, wiping at his eyes, swearing his feelings had been real. Then came the inevitable question from the chat flashing across the screen. "But what about Serafina? She was pregnant." Julian took a deep, shuddering breath, covered his face with his hands and seemed to fight for composure. As his emotions became too overwhelming, his father, Alistair Thorne, stepped into the frame, placing a comforting hand on his son's shoulder. "That day," Alistair said, his voice grave and paternal, "Alara and Julian had a small disagreement. Julian was upset and he went out for a drink to clear his head. That woman, Serafina, took advantage of the situation. We believe she drugged him." He paused for effect. "Julian has been in pain about it ever since. We didn't dare tell Alara. He would have felt too guilty." I actually laughed out loud, a sharp, bitter sound in my quiet apartment. So that was their play. Push the entire blame onto Serafina, paint Julian as the tragically violated victim, and me as the poor, unknowing woman he'd been trying to protect. They were sacrificing their pawn to save the king. It was despicable. And it was working. The live chat was flooding with sympathy for Julian. I waited, wondering if Serafina would come forward to deny it. Her silence was deafening. Why would she allow herself to be painted as a predatory rapist? The answer came a day later in a text from Julian that made my blood run cold. Monday, 9 a.m. Civil Affairs Bureau. Bring your ID. Let's get the divorce finalized. The divorce. In the whirlwind, I had almost forgotten the most insidious trap of all. Before the wedding, pressured by his mother Eleanor, who saw me as the perfect, respectable daughter-in-law, Julian had insisted we officially register our marriage. I'd thought it romantic, a sign of his commitment. I now saw it for what it was. Another layer of control, another string he could pull. In the eyes of the law, we were still married. His mother had never liked Serafina. This was their condition for accepting her. Serafina had to shoulder the entire burden of public hatred, be the villainess so Julian could emerge as the wronged hero. And she, in her twisted love or obsession, had agreed. Her silence was the price of admission into the Thorne family. So once again Julian gave in to his family's demands and Serafina gave in to Julian. On Monday I met him at the Civil Affairs Bureau. The air between us was frigid. We went through the motions, the paperwork, a stark, bureaucratic end to a relationship that had never been real. As we walked out, the bright sunlight felt like an accusation. And there she was. Serafina, waiting by the fountain, a vision in innocent white. She ran to Julian, throwing herself into his arms. Julian, now I can finally marry you, she cried, her voice dripping with joyous tears. He wrapped his arms around her, a perfect picture of devotion. Silly girl, he said, his voice soft. You've always been the only one I wanted to marry. You just never believed me. Then over his shoulder Serafina shot me a look. It wasn't just a look of triumph. It was a glare of pure, unadulterated hatred, a promise of future retribution. I held her gaze for a moment, then turned and walked away without a word. I wouldn't let their pathetic performance dirty my eyes. Let them have their hollow victory. They were welcome to each other. A few days later, Chloe found me at my office, hunched over my drafting table, sketching a new design for a pendant inspired by fractured light. Elara, she said, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. They're getting married. In 3 days. Don't you feel anything? I didn't look up from my sketch. They're getting married. Why would I feel anything? She huffed in frustration. Serafina ruined your life. Sure, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. You saw him for the snake he is, but I still can't swallow this. What do you say we stir things up a bit on their wedding day? A little surprise. My pencil stilled. My heart gave a small, hard jolt. In my last life, the most damning accusation, the one that had haunted me until my dying day, was that I had killed Serafina's unborn child. I'd been called a murderer by strangers on the street. But I had been completely in the dark. I hadn't even known she existed before the wedding. How could her miscarriage have had anything to do with me? After being reborn, one of the first things I had done was hire a private investigator to find the truth. The results had come in just that morning, and they were far more satisfying than I could have ever imagined. I finally looked at Chloe, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. I patted her hand. You don't need to lift a finger. Just sit back and enjoy the show. The next afternoon, I had a courier deliver a plain manila envelope to Julian's private office. Inside was not a weapon but a key. The key to the cage they were so eagerly building for themselves. That night I turned off my phone, poured a glass of wine, and finally had the first peaceful, dreamless sleep of my new life. I heard through the grapevine that the Thorne household erupted in chaos. Alistair and Eleanor were furious, their shouts echoing through the mansion. Julian at first defended Serafina with a surprising fervor, even kneeling before his parents and declaring, I already failed her once. I lost our baby. I won't betray her again no matter what. It was then, in the face of his stubborn nobility, that his father, clutching his chest in rage, flung the file I had sent straight at Julian's face. You fool! Alistair had roared. Read it. Confused, Julian picked up the scattered pages. The color drained from his face as he read the investigator's report, complete with photocopied medical records from a shady, back-alley clinic and signed statements from a certain other man Serafina had been involved with during her disappearance. The truth was simple and utterly devastating. Their child was never lost because of me or the stress of the wedding. After Serafina had run away, angry and humiliated, she had quickly found comfort in the arms of another man. A complication arose and she had miscarried. Terrified Julian would find out, she hadn't dared go to a proper hospital. And on the day of my wedding, for the sake of maximum drama, she had gone to a local butcher, bought a pouch of chicken blood and smeared it under her dress. She had then told Julian that I, Ilara, had driven her into such an emotional breakdown that I was the direct cause of her losing their baby. The foundation of their entire twisted narrative, the very cornerstone of my villainy, was a lie. A cheap, grotesque and calculated lie. I didn't know what happened between them after Julian learned the truth, and I didn't care to follow up. I was busy. I had designs to draw, a career to build. In my past life, industry veterans had praised my natural talent, saying my designs had a soul. I wouldn't waste that again. I was finalizing plans for my own jewelry studio, a brand that would belong only to me. Every second was precious. There wasn't a moment to spare for the crumbling ruins of Julian Thorne and Seraphina Reed. The trap had been sprung, and they had walked right into it. The calm I had cultivated was shattered the next morning. The moment I switched my phone on after a night of deep, untroubled sleep, it erupted in a violent symphony of rings and notifications. I ignored the unknown numbers, but one call came through persistently. A sense of grim inevitability settled over me as I answered. Ilara Vance, it was you, wasn't it? Seraphina's voice was a shrill, broken thing, scraping against my eardrums. You're trying to destroy me. I let out a weary, mocking laugh. Do you make a habit of barking at people first thing in the morning? She was too far gone in her hysteria to register the insult. Don't think I don't know. You've been investigating me. All because you're jealous. Jealous that Julian only loves me, not you. You want to ruin me. Let me tell you something, she hissed, her breath ragged. You'll never take him away from me. Over my dead body. She kept repeating the phrase, her voice spiraling into a frenzied, unhinged mantra. It was the sound of a plan unraveling, of a carefully constructed world cracking at the seams. I couldn't stomach it. I hung up and blocked the number in one fluid motion. But I had underestimated the depth of her desperation. That same afternoon, as I was trying to find solace in the quiet hum of my favorite cafe, she found me. She slid into the chair opposite mine, her presence an unwelcome chill. She was a ghost of the calculated vision she'd once presented. Her hair was a tangled mess, her complexion pale and waxy. The dark circles under her eyes were a stark contrast to my own composed, if weary, appearance. Ilara Vance, she declared, her voice trembling with a forced bravado. I'm not giving Julian up to you. No matter what tricks you use, it won't work. I sighed, placing my coffee cup down with deliberate calm. Emily, I said, using her real name to prick at her facade, don't you find it a little pathetic? You went through all that effort and yet Julian still won't let you through the door. I tilted my head, a faint, cold smile on my lips. You've clung to him for so long. Every time a woman walks past him, you go on the attack. Isn't that exhausting? Her jaw tightened. You and I are different. We are, I agreed softly. I didn't even have to try, and Julian's parents accepted me. I heard they've banned you from the house again. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few days they come begging me to take their son back. After all, I'm the best option they'll ever get. By then, whatever you try to do will be too late. She shot to her feet, slamming her palms on the table, making the china rattle. You bitch. Keep dreaming. I sighed again, the picture of weary patience. Seraphina, the one who's been dreaming all along is you. You actually think love alone is enough to keep a man like Julian Thorne? If your only weapon is emotional manipulation, then someone else is bound to steal him away sooner or later. If it's not me, it'll be someone else. She froze, my words hitting their mark with the precision of a scalpel. She stood there, stuck in a silent, seething rage as the civilized world of the cafe moved around her, oblivious to the tempest at table 7. For the next half-month, a strange quiet fell. Both Julian and Seraphina vanished from my radar and, it seemed, from the public eye. The online storm began to subside, other scandals taking its place. I immersed myself in my work, the designs for my studio flowing from my pencil with a new, fierce clarity. The pendant, fractured light, was becoming a statement piece, a beautiful thing born from brokenness. The piece was an illusion. The next time I heard their names, it was from a society columnist. Julian Thorne and Seraphina Reed were to be married in 3 days' time. The announcement was rushed, almost frantic. It felt less like a celebration and more like a last, desperate gambit. On the day of their wedding, the sun was a blazing, indifferent orb in a clear blue sky. I did not attend. Chloe, my loyal knight, went early to the venue, her phone charged and ready. Her mission was simple: to live-stream the spectacle for me. My own mission was of a more legal nature. I gathered the documents my lawyer, Mr. Sterling, had prepared and headed straight to the police station. The grounds for my case were solid. Julian and I were still legally married. Our divorce, filed just days before, was still within the mandatory cooling-off period. It was not yet finalized. By attempting to marry Serafina, Julian was committing the crime of bigamy, and she was a willing accomplice. According to Chloe's frantic whispered commentary from her live stream, the wedding was an even more chaotic farce than mine had been. They were on a flower-strewn stage, sharing saccharine stories of their epic love, of trials overcome and destiny fulfilled. Julian was painting himself as a hero who had fought for his true love against all odds. Serafina was clinging to his arm, her smile brittle but triumphant. It was at this peak of their performance, as the officiant asked if anyone present knew of any reason these two should not be lawfully joined, that the police officers I had sent quietly walked down the aisle. The live stream footage was shaky but crystal clear. The look of utter shock on Julian's face, the dawning horror on Serafina's. The officer spoke to them in low, firm tones. Julian stood frozen, a statue of humiliation. But Serafina erupted. Her eyes went wild. She glared at Julian, her voice rising to a shriek that the phone's microphone picked up perfectly. Do something, Julian. Beg your parents. Pay them off. Do whatever it takes. This wedding is happening. Julian, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped in defeat, finally looked at her. After a long, painful pause, he only said 2 words. Forget it. That was the match that lit the powder keg. Serafina went completely, spectacularly hysterical. She was no longer a tragic heroine, she was a feral creature. She scratched at his face, her manicured nails drawing blood. She beat her fists against his chest, screaming, "You think anyone else would want you? Who the hell would still marry you? Forget it. You think it's that simple? If this wedding doesn't happen, you know exactly what's coming." She trashed the altar, flipping over the floral arrangements, tearing down the gauzy drapes, sending glasses of champagne flying until several guests and security had to physically restrain her and drag her, kicking and screaming, from the venue. The live stream cut off amid the chaos. I handed the finalized complaint for bigamy over to the stoic officer at the desk. The ensuing legal mess would tie them up for months. As I walked out of the police station, the bright sunlight felt different. It felt clean. I went back to my studio and lost myself in my work, adding the final intricate details to the fractured light pendant. It was a masterpiece of broken lines and captured illumination. My cousin Ben called to say my parents were returning from Tuscany, tanned, relaxed, and eager to see me. I promised I would spend a quiet, uninterrupted week with them, making up for the lost time and regrets of my past life. But first, the Mitchell mess needed its final chapter. Their household, according to Mr. Sterling's sources, was in total disarray. Alistair and Eleanor were scrambling, calling in a lifetime's worth of favors, hiring an army of high-priced lawyers to keep their son and his would-be bride out of jail. They managed to secure their temporary release, a testament to the power of their wealth and influence. After their release, Serafina, humiliated and enraged, insisted on holding another wedding, a bigger one, to show the world they had won. This time Julian flatly refused. He had been publicly arrested at his own wedding. His pride, the one thing he truly cherished, had been shredded. His father, his hair noticeably grayer, his eyes permanently bloodshot, confronted him. "Julian," Alistair's voice was trembling, aged a decade in a matter of weeks. "Your mother and I have supported you in everything. But ever since you got involved with that Serafina Reed, this family has never known a moment's peace. We've learned our lesson. You need to end it with her. There are plenty of good women out there. If you insist on being with her, then you're no son of mine." Julian's eyes turned red, but a stubborn, foolish loyalty, or perhaps just sheer spite, held him. He dropped to his knees with a loud thud. "Mom, Dad, I have my reasons. I have to marry her." It was the final straw. For the first time, Julian's father looked at his son with true, heartbroken disappointment. He had Julian locked inside the family estate, cutting off all his communication with the outside world. Serafina was strictly, physically forbidden from seeing him. For 3 days she searched for him. He went to his clubs, his office, his favorite restaurants. She even showed up at my parents' new high-security building, but was turned away at the gate. She found nothing. On the fourth day, angry, humiliated, and utterly unhinged, Serafina played her final catastrophic card. She uploaded a video online. It was shaky, dark, and damning. In a tearful, rage-filled monologue, she revealed that after our meeting at the cafe, in a desperate attempt to tie Julian to her forever, she had drugged him during a private dinner. She had then, in a calculated move to secure his dependency, delivered him to the hotel room of a powerful older business associate of his father's, a man known for his particular tastes. She had recorded the entire sordid setup. Her intention had been to use the footage to blackmail Julian into marriage. But what she didn't expect, she screamed at the camera, was that Julian, even after seeing the video, still hesitated. He was trying to find a way to calm her down without giving in. So, in a fit of ultimate spite, she released it to the world. I saw my opportunity. I added fuel to the fire, using a network of online contacts to ensure the video gained maximum visibility, pulling away the digital veil I had kept over their affairs. I knew Julian too well. His pride was his temple, and Serafina had just burned it to the ground. The fallout was immediate and nuclear. The video was too vile, too explicit in its implications, for even the Thorns' money to silence. The man in the video, a prominent figure, threatened lawsuits of his own. Julian was not just a cuckold. He was a victim and a pawn in the most humiliating way imaginable. I didn't wait for the final act. I had a new home, a new studio, and a life to build. Through a connection, I was introduced to Isabella Rossi, a legendary reclusive figure in the world of jewelry design. I showed her my portfolio, my hands trembling slightly. She looked at the fractured light design for a long, silent time. "This," she said, her accent thick, her eyes sharp and intelligent, "has a voice. It is angry and it is beautiful. I can teach you to make it sing. But you must come to Milan. I do not teach via video call." It was the chance of a lifetime. The night before I left, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but a cold intuition made me press the button. There was silence on the other end for a long time, filled only with the sound of ragged breathing. Just as I was about to hang up, I heard his voice. It was hollow, broken, a ghost of the confident baritone I once knew. "Ilara," Julian croaked. "If we had actually gotten married back then, do you think none of this would have happened? Serafina, she ruined our wedding. She ruined me. I regret it." I let out a soft, scornful laugh that echoed in the quiet of my apartment. "There is no what if, Julian. We were never going to make it." And I hung up. He would never understand. After everything I had lived through in my past life, even without Serafina Reed, there was no version of reality where I would have chosen him in this one. The void he was staring into was of his own making. My path finally was leading elsewhere. To Milan. To Isabella Rossi. To a future I was designing for myself. Milan was a baptism of fire and light. Isabella Rossi's studio was a chaotic symphony of creativity, a world away from the sterile order of my old life. She was a demanding, brilliant taskmaster, her critiques as sharp as her gravers. Under her tutelage, the anger and pain that had fueled my fractured light design were honed, refined, and transformed into something powerful and precise. I learned to channel the chaos into my art, to make the metal and gems speak of resilience, not just ruin. For 2 months I lived and breathed design. I spoke to my parents daily, their voices a steady, loving anchor. Chloe's updates were my only tether to the world I'd left behind, and I kept them brief. I was healing not just from Julian and Serafina, but from the ghost of the woman I had been, the one who believed in fairy tales and trusted too easily. The day I returned, Chloe met me at the airport. The moment she saw me, her face, usually so animated, was pale and drawn. She didn't hug me. She just blurted it out, the words stark and final. "Serafina is dead." The noise of the terminal seemed to recede, replaced by a high-pitched hum in my ears. "What?" "After you left, Julian was finally released on bail. The scandal from the video was immense. His family was trying to have him committed to some private Swiss clinic to get him away from everything. But he snapped. He found Serafina hiding in some grimy short-term rental. He stabbed her. Over a dozen times. She died right there." Chloe's voice dropped to a whisper. "He was the one who called the police. He just sat there on the curb, covered in it, and waited for them to arrive. I leaned against a cool pillar, the world tilting. I had wanted revenge. I had wanted them to pay. But this was a horror beyond any design. This was the twisted, bloody end of the melodrama they had started on that rooftop. The thorns, Chloe continued, her words tumbling out. They tried everything. Money, lawyers, everything. But with the video, the bigamy charge, and now this, there was nothing they could do. The trial was swift. He's gone, Lara. Life with no chance of parole for 25 years. I saw him then not as the monster he had become, but as the broken man on the phone, whispering his regrets into the void. He had gotten his wish. There was no what if anymore. There was only the crushing finality of a prison cell and the ghost of a woman he had both loved and destroyed. The victory I had imagined tasted like ashes. I threw myself into my work with a ferocity that frightened even me. My studio, Kintsugi, was set to open in 3 months. The name was Japanese, meaning to repair with gold. The art of mending broken pottery by highlighting the fractures with precious metal, making the object more beautiful for having been broken. It was my manifesto. The grand opening was a testament to the life I was rebuilding. The space was filled with light, my designs displayed on velvet stands, each piece a story of fracture and repair. The fractured light pendant was the centerpiece, a constellation of shattered diamond shards held in a web of white gold, capturing and refracting the light in a dazzling, defiant display. Everyone who had stood by me was there. My parents, their eyes shining with pride, their hands clasped tightly together. Chloe, beaming, orchestrating the event like a proud general. My cousin Ben, Mr. Sterling, even a few industry contacts who had seen my work under Isabella and were curious. They had witnessed my public humiliation, my collapse. Now they witnessed my resurrection. A reporter from a prestigious design magazine circled the fractured light piece. "It's stunning," she said. "What was the inspiration?" I looked at the glittering, broken lines. It was inspired by the idea that our deepest cracks can become the places where the light enters us most powerfully, I said, my voice clear and steady. That we are not defined by what shatters us, but by how we put ourselves back together. She nodded, scribbling in her notebook. Maybe my brand would become a household name. Maybe it wouldn't. But it didn't matter. I was using my designs to tell the world the only thing that truly mattered. We are not cannon fodder in someone else's story. We are not the evil supporting characters. We are the authors of our own lives, and we can write our own endings. Later that night, after the last guest had left and the champagne flutes were being cleared away, I stood alone in the center of my studio. The silence was no longer empty. It was full of potential. The nightmare was over. Julian and Serafina's twisted love story had consumed them both, leaving only echoes and court transcripts. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, but I had a feeling I knew who it was. Saw the feature on Kintsugi online. The work is remarkable. You have surpassed even my expectations. The world is ready for your voice. Isabella. A slow, genuine smile spread across my face, the first that felt unburdened by the past. I looked around at my studio, at the beautiful broken things I had made whole again. The ashes had settled. On the anvil of my own wool I had forged something new, something strong, something truly my own. The story of the girl on the rooftop was closed. The story of Alara Vance, designer, was just beginning. The success of Kintsugi was a quiet, steady burn, not a flashy explosion. The feature in the design magazine brought a wave of discerning clients, women who saw more than just jewelry in my pieces. They saw resilience. They would come into the studio, their eyes lingering on the fractured light pendant, and I would see a flicker of recognition, a shared understanding of survival. My work was finding its audience, and the studio became a sanctuary of creation and calm. It was in this newfound peace that I received an invitation that sent a jolt of cold surprise through me. The invitation was for the annual Thorn Foundation Gala, a glittering event I had attended with Julian in what felt like a past life. It was embossed, formal, and addressed solely to me. The note inside, written in a precise, elegant hand, was from Eleanor Thorne. Lara, I would be honored if you would attend as my personal guest. There is much I feel we should discuss. Eleanor. Chloe was apoplectic. You're not going. Lara, have you lost your mind? That woman is a gorgon. This is a trap. She lost her son to a life sentence, Chloe, I said, my voice softer than I expected. Her world has collapsed in a way even I can't comprehend. What trap could she possibly set for me now? Guilt? Public humiliation? A final dramatic curse from the House of Thorn, she retorted, waving her hands dramatically. But curiosity, that dangerous and persistent creature, had its claws in me. Eleanor had been the architect of so much behind the scenes, the one who had disapproved of Seraphina and championed me as the suitable bride. What did she want to discuss? I decided to go. The night of the gala, I dressed not as the jilted bride, nor as the vengeful ex, but as Ilara Vance, founder of Kintsugi. I wore a simple columnar gown of deep emerald green, and from my neck hung my own creation, a new piece I called the Unyielding Vine, a cascade of platinum and paradots that twisted and turned but never broke. The ballroom was a sea of familiar faces, all of whom had witnessed my downfall. A hush fell as I entered on Eleanor's arm. She was thinner, her elegance now brittle, but her head was held high. She guided me through the crowd, her grip firm on my elbow, a silent command to those who would dare to stare. We found a relatively quiet alcove. She turned to me, her eyes the same stormy gray as Julian's, searching my face. "You look well, Ilara," she began, her voice low. "Your studio. It seems to be a success." "Thank you, Eleanor." "It is." A long, heavy silence stretched between us, filled with the ghost of her son and the woman he killed. "I owe you an apology," she said finally, the words seeming to cost her a great deal. "A profound one. I saw in you what I wanted for Julian. Stability. Plus, a solid foundation for the Thorn legacy. I was so blinded by my own ambitions for him, my own distaste for that creature, that I never stopped to see the flaw in the cornerstone. The weakness in my own son." I said nothing. I just let her speak, let the words she had probably rehearsed for weeks tumble out. "I pushed him toward you," she continued, her gaze distant. "I pressured him into the marriage certificate. I thought I could mold him, shape him into the man he was supposed to be by giving him the right wife. But all I did was apply pressure to a crack that was already there. And when it finally shattered, it destroyed everything in its path." She looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You were collateral damage in a war I started with my son. For that I am truly sorry." It was not the villainous monologue Chloe had imagined. It was the confession of a broken, proud woman who had finally seen the limits of her own control. The anger I had carried for her manipulations, softened into a complex, weary pity. "Thank you for the apology, Eleanor," I said quietly. "I accept it." She nodded, a single sharp movement as if closing a ledger. "There is one more thing." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a small velvet box. This was my mother's. It was always meant for Julian's wife. "Given the circumstances, I would like you to have it. Not as a daughter-in-law, but as a woman I wronged, and who conducted herself with a grace my family did not deserve." She pressed the box into my hand. Before I could refuse, she turned and melted back into the crowd, the queen returning to her fractured court. Later, alone in my apartment, I opened the box. Inside was a breathtaking Art Deco ring, a central sapphire surrounded by baguette diamonds. It was cold and beautiful, a relic from a dynasty that was now synonymous with scandal and ruin. I didn't know what to do with it. It felt tainted, a prize from a battle I never wanted to fight. I put it in my safe, out of sight. The gala had been a final, strange coda to the Thorn chapter of my life. I thought it was the last echo. I was wrong. A week later, a man walked into my studio. He was tall, with a quiet presence that filled the space without demanding it. He had kind eyes and an easy smile, and he spent a long time looking at the Unyielding Vine piece in the display case. "This is extraordinary," he said, his voice a warm baritone. "It feels stubbornly hopeful." I found myself smiling. That's exactly what I was going for. His name was Daniel, he told me. He was a history professor at the university. We talked for almost an hour, not about my past or his, but about art, about the resilience of ancient civilizations, about the beauty of things that endure. He bought a pair of small hammered silver earrings, a simple piece, but his appreciation for the craft felt genuine. After he left, Chloe, who had been pretending to organize paperwork in the back, pounced. "Oh my God. He was cute. And he didn't seem to have a single clue who you are." I laughed, a real, unforced laugh. "He was just a customer, Chloe." But he came back the following week, this time with a book on Etruscan metalworking techniques he thought I might find interesting. We went for coffee. It was easy. It was normal. And in the quiet, pleasant rhythm of getting to know someone new, I felt a shadow I had grown accustomed to finally begin to recede. Daniel was a glimpse of a future unhaunted by the past. He represented a world where I was not that woman from the Thorn scandal, but simply Ilara, the jeweler. It was terrifying and exhilarating. One evening as we were walking through a park, he gently took my hand. His touch was warm, solid. There was no manipulation in it, no hidden agenda, just a simple human connection. I didn't pull away. I let my fingers curl around his, feeling the ghost of an old, cold grip on my wrist finally loosen its hold. The spotlight of notoriety had faded, and in the gentle, ordinary shadow of this new beginning, I allowed myself for the first time to believe that my life could truly be my own. The world with Daniel in it was softer at the edges. Our relationship was a slow, gentle burn, a stark contrast to the inferno that had characterized my past. He was patient, allowing me to set the pace, never pushing for more than I was ready to give. He knew the broad strokes of my history. It was impossible to avoid, given the very public nature of the Thorns' downfall. But he never asked for the gory details. He seemed content to know me as I was now. Ilara, the artist, the woman who loved strong coffee and terrible science fiction movies. One Saturday he helped me reorganize my studio storage. As I was shifting a box of old sketchbooks, the small velvet box from Eleanor Thorne tumbled out and fell to the floor, springing open. The Art Deco sapphire ring glittered against the dark wood. Daniel picked it up carefully. "This is stunning," he said, his historian's eye appreciating the craftsmanship. "The setting is classic late 1920s. A family piece. A complex knot tightened in my chest. In a way," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. "It was from Julian's mother." He didn't flinch or pull away. He simply nodded, closing the box and handing it back to me. "It carries a heavy weight, doesn't it?" His understanding was a quiet balm. But his question lingered long after he'd gone. A heavy weight. That's exactly what it was. A beautiful, cold, and burdensome artifact from a sunken ship. I had kept it out of a confused sense of obligation, a twisted trophy from a war I'd never wanted to fight. But seeing it through Daniel's eyes, I knew I couldn't keep it locked away. It was a chain to a past I was finally, truly moving beyond. The solution came to me a few days later. I contacted Mr. Sterling. "I want to liquidate the ring," I told him. "And I want the entire sum, every penny, to be anonymously donated to the New Dawn Women's Shelter." It was a charity that helped women escape abusive relationships, rebuild their lives, and learn new skills. The poetic justice was perfect. The Thorns' blood money transformed into a lifeline for women like the one I might have become. The moment the transfer was confirmed, a physical weight lifted from my shoulders. It was the final act of letting go. I was no longer the victim, the avenger, or the inheritor of a toxic legacy. I was free. This sense of liberation bled into my work. My new collection, Unbound, was my most powerful yet. The pieces were fluid and open, featuring motifs of breaking chains and unfurling wings. The centerpiece was a necklace called Free Fall, a breathtaking cascade of aquamarines and moonstones that looked like a waterfall frozen in midair, representing the terrifying and beautiful leap into the unknown. The night before the Unbound launch, Daniel took me out to a small, quiet restaurant. Over dessert, he reached into his pocket and my breath hitched for an irrational second. But he didn't pull out a ring. He placed a small, lumpy, handmade ceramic star on the table. "I know it's not a kintsugi original," he said, a faint blush on his cheeks. "My niece made it in her pottery class. She calls it a wishing star." I told her I knew the perfect person to give it to, someone who knows how to make beautiful things out of pieces. Tears pricked my eyes, not of sadness but of overwhelming, simple joy. It was the most perfect gift I had ever received. It held no history, no pain, no price tag. It was just a token of affection, pure and uncomplicated. The Unbound launch was a triumph. The collection was met with critical acclaim and commercial success. I stood before the crowd, Daniel's hand a warm, steady presence at the small of my back, and spoke about the courage it takes to release the past and embrace a future of your own design. I felt for the first time that my public persona and my private self were finally in alignment. A few weeks later, a letter arrived at my studio. It was on plain, cheap stationery with a prison return address. My heart stalled. It was from Julian. For a long time I left it unopened on my desk, a stark white rectangle of a past I had sealed shut. Curiosity once again warred with self-preservation. Finally, with Daniel sitting silently beside me, his presence a shield, I slit the envelope. Lara, I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know that's a currency I spent long ago. I'm writing because you are the only person left who knew me before I became. My mother writes, but she writes to the son she wished I was. My father does not write at all. Prison is a place of brutal honesty. There are no thorns here, no social masks. There is just me, alone with the consequences of my choices. I have a lot of time to think. I think about Serafina and the sickness that was our love. I think about my parents and the weight of a name I was too weak to carry. And I think about you. You were the only real thing in that entire fabricated life. And my greatest sin was not using you but failing to see your worth. I was so consumed by my own drama, my own petty rebellions and obsessions, that I treated a diamond like glass. I heard about your studio. Kintsugi. I looked it up. The irony is not lost on me. You took what I helped break and made it more beautiful. I'm glad for you. Truly. This is the last you will hear from me. I just needed you to know that in this concrete box, I have finally found a shred of the man you once thought I could be. I am sorry it came too late for everyone, especially for Serafina. I hope your life is full of light. Julian. I folded the letter, my hands steady. There was no rage, no satisfaction, just a profound oceanic sadness for all of it. For the lives wasted, the love corrupted, the potential squandered. Are you okay? Daniel asked softly. I looked at him, at his kind, concerned face, and then around my sunlit studio at the beautiful, unbound creations that were my life's work. I thought of my parents, of Chloe, of the future that was now mine to shape. Yes, I said, and I meant it. I stood up, walked to the fireplace, and without ceremony, dropped Julian's letter onto the cold grate. I struck a match and watched as the flames consumed his words, turning his apology and his regret into smoke and ash. It was not an act of vengeance. It was an act of release. The past was truly past. Its power over me was gone. The chapter was not just closed. It was burned away, leaving nothing but fertile ground for whatever was to come next. A year unfolded in a tapestry of peaceful, vibrant threads. Kintsugi was not just a success. It became an institution. My unbound collection was acquired by a major museum for their contemporary design wing, a validation that left me breathless. The girl who had been publicly shamed was now being studied for her artistic merit. The narrative had been rewritten by my own hands. Daniel was a constant, steady presence. We traveled to Greece, where he gave lectures on classical history and I sketched the sun-bleached ruins, finding inspiration in structures that had endured millennia. We bickered affectionately over the best way to make pasta sauce and adopted a scruffy rescue dog we named Hector. It was a life built not on drama but on small, cumulative joys. It was real. The final piece of my old life fell into place on a crisp autumn morning. I was meeting my mother for lunch. As I waited for her outside the restaurant, a harried-looking woman with a stroller struggled to open the door. I jumped up and held it for her. "Thank you so much," she said, her face flushed. As she passed, she did a double take. Her eyes widened in recognition, but it wasn't the morbid curiosity I was used to. It was something softer. "You're Lara Vance, aren't you?" she asked. "From Kintsugi." "I am," I said, bracing myself. She gestured to the simple silver, unyielding vine bracelet on her wrist, one of my more affordable pieces. "I bought this after my divorce. It felt like a secret message to myself that I was going to be okay." She looked at me, her eyes sincere. "Thank you. Your story, your work. It gave me hope when I needed it." The words landed not as a burden but as a gift. My past, which I had worked so hard to compartmentalize and overcome, had been transmuted. It was no longer just my private pain. It had become a source of strength for someone else. The cracks in my life had not just been mended with gold for my own sake. They were now reflecting light onto the path of others. My mother arrived and the woman smiled and moved on. Over lunch I told my mom what had happened. She reached across the table and took my hand, her eyes shining. "I always knew you were meant for more than that gilded cage, my love," she said. "Look at you now. You're not just surviving. You're building a foundation." Her words resonated. A foundation. That's what I had now. Not a legacy built on a family name or a marriage certificate, but one built on integrity, on art, on the choice to be kind even when I had every reason to be cruel. That evening I was in my studio working on a new design. It was a ring unlike anything I had made before. It was bold and geometric yet fluid, with channels of gold weaving through a central raw diamond. It spoke of structure and freedom, history and the future. It was, I realized, for me. Daniel found me there, covered in a fine dust of gold filings, utterly absorbed. "It's beautiful," he said, leaning against the doorway. "What's it called?" I looked up at him, at the man who had never tried to fix me, but had always stood by me as I fixed myself. I thought of the foundation I had built, brick by painful brick. I thought of the future, wide open and full of promise. "It doesn't have a name yet," I said, a slow, certain smile spreading across my face. "But I think it's a promise." He didn't say anything. He just walked over, took my dusty hands in his and kissed me. And in that kiss there were no ghosts, no shadows of the past. There was only the solid, unwavering present, and the brilliant, boundless future we would build together. The story of the rooftop, of Julian and Serafina, of betrayal and revenge, was finally, completely over. It was a closed book on a shelf in a distant library. My life was no longer a reaction to them. It was my own creation, my own design, and I was finally, joyously free to wear it. The end.
George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. How is that bad news? Frank chuckled. Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist. What do you mean? A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed. Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this. Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. George, it's been a long time. She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. Who are you? I struggled to remain calm. I'm Mary, your wife. She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. Impossible. Mary is already dead. She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall with an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. Oh my God, it really is you, Mary. Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. Frank, it's been a long time. She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, "Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her." Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew. A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. "Aren't you allergic to mangoes?" I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, "Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing." I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. "When did you start smoking?" I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor." I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. "Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level." Frank's eyes widened. "You mean, she's not Mary?" "I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up." 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. "Mary is an only child. We all know that." I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. "George, Mary is going to have a baby," my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that?" I managed to ask. "Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. "It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life." My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. "Mary, could you come here for a moment?" I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. "Did you forget about this?" I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. "George, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain that you're not Mary at all." Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. "What's going on with you two?" "Mom, take a look at this." I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. "What's going on?" "Mary, you can't have children." "Of course she can," I sneered, "because she's not Mary at all." My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I can explain." She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. "That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly." My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. "George, you're being too paranoid." My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. "Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her." "Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby." I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. All right, I believe you. I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here? I probed cautiously. For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience, my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the third day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. They're after your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hard to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. It's taking too long, Tom said irritably. How much longer until he sells the painting? Don't worry, she soothed him. I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money. You're really pregnant? That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly. Does Annie know the truth? She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help. I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. You don't actually have feelings for George, do you? Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word. Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it. Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell Eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. This is a surprise I prepared for you, I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. To celebrate the new life we're about to begin. She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. It's beautiful, thank you. She smiled as she prepared to put it on. Wait, I stopped her. Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back? She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. What's wrong? Don't you like it? I asked, feigning ignorance. No, I really like it. It's just... I'm a bit moved. She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace. I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, after all, this is your final design. Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light. On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in Eternity and asking me about the auction details. The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon, I replied with a smile. This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it. Mary immediately chimed in. Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future. I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of Eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting. Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, Mary. This is my wife, Mary. I took her hand and stepped forward. Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me. She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost. I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle Eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to Eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. "What are you doing here?" she asked coldly. "A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is." She looked surprised. "How did you know?" "Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it." My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. "That blood amber is very important to me," I said softly. "It was the last gift my wife left me." Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, "Maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet." Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. "Do you know where he might hide it?" Luna hesitated for a moment. "He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city." After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. "Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box," the officer said over the phone. "Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence." A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Frank frowned. "That blood amber is priceless." "That's exactly why," I said firmly. "Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish." For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only a year and a half. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. "The case is finally over," Frank said. "Are you planning to exhibit your painting?" "Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale." The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. "Mr. George," a stranger's voice called from behind. "Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared." He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. "And you are?" "I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area," she explained with a smile. "I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit." "Thank you." I nodded. "I'll be leaving soon." She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. "That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive." "It's blood amber," I explained, "a very rare gemstone." "I know," she said softly, "top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare." I looked at her in surprise. "You know a lot about jewelry?" She smiled. "I study jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here." For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. "If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting?" she asked. "My wife," I replied. "She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer." "I'm very sorry," she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. "This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently." She nodded thoughtfully. Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her. For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. "Sorry, I have to continue my rounds." She glanced at her watch. "See you tomorrow, Mr. George." "See you tomorrow," I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, The Pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. "Who is this?" The response came quickly. "Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow." Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall, but there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. "Mr. George, thank you for coming." The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. "Did you send the email?" I asked directly. She nodded. "There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me?" We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. "Who are you, really?" The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. "My name is Nicole." She looked me straight in the eye. "I'm Mary's student." This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. "I took her advanced design class the year before she passed," Nicole explained. "Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime." "That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much," I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. "These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers." I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. "Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project," Nicole continued. "The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice, and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time." "George's special birthday project?" I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, in memory, dedicated to teacher Mary. Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines, with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. New friend? He asked me quietly. Mary's student, I explained simply. Very talented. Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the three of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. Mr. George, Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. I've always had a question I wanted to ask you. What is it? After you finished The Pursuit, what are you planning to create next? The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since The Pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. It might take some time to find a new direction. Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. Maybe, Nicole said softly, you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further. I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. You mean, creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry? Exactly. Nicole said excitedly, your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect. The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, I have to confess something. I looked at her in confusion. I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you, she said candidly. I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion. Her sincerity moved me. You're already on that path, and you're doing very well. Then, may I consult you often? She asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, See, I knew you would find a new direction. When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. Am I really up to the task? She asked me in the studio. You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone, I assured her. That's exactly what I need. In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. "This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it." At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's all right," I said with a smile. "I think Mary really would like it. She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself." Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, "Professor George, may I ask you a personal question?" "What is it?" "When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole." I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. "George, you look much more spirited lately," Frank remarked at a gathering. "It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life." "Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating." "Nicole's a good girl," Frank said meaningfully. "Talented, and she really understands you." I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. "I came to apologize to you in person." She stood at the studio door, her voice low, "for everything I have done." I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. "I know that an apology can't make up for the loss," she continued, "but I want you to know that I truly regret it." "How is your sister's illness?" I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. "You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true." "Yes," she nodded. "My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes, even though I may never be able to." I was silent for a moment, then said, "You know, in a way, your appearance actually helped me." "What do you mean?" "It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward." I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. "I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare," she said at last. "I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well." As she left, she handed me a small package. "These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them." Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. "You forgave her?" Nicole was a bit surprised. "Not exactly forgiveness," I said thoughtfully. "It's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes. Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design. Perhaps, I said, everyone has the possibility of being reborn. On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. "Who was that?" Nicole asked, standing beside me. "Someone searching for Rebirth," I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. "Thank you," I whispered to Nicole. "Without you, this series might never have come into being." "It was your philosophy that guided us, Teacher Nicole," she replied modestly. I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger. In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," Frank said excitedly. "If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market." I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. "Which offer are you planning to accept?" One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. "To be honest, I'm still hesitating." Nicole paused her work. "These are all great opportunities, but what? But I want to keep working with you." She looked straight into my eyes. "Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it?" Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. "You should consider your own career development," I said tactfully. "These opportunities are very rare for young designers." Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. "I understand." In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "It's a very good choice." "Thank you," she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. "I think this is the best arrangement for both of us." Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. "Are you really going to just let her go like this?" "What do you mean?" I pretended not to understand. "Don't play dumb, man," Frank said bluntly. "You have feelings for her. That's obvious." "That's just professional rapport," I argued. "Is that so?" Frank looked at me meaningfully. "Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France?" I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. "I know what you're worried about," Frank lowered his voice. "You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you?" I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. "Mary has been gone for 3 years now." Frank gently patted my shoulder. "She would want you to be happy." After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months. Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. This experience has meant so much to me. I should be thanking you, I said sincerely. Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed. We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. My flight is the morning after tomorrow, Nicole finally said. I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was, I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, I've been thinking about something. What is it? If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met. Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. Perhaps that's the irony of fate, I said softly. Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings. When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path. Luna, I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, her skills have improved a lot. She truly has talent. Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars, I sighed. Everyone deserves a second chance. That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. You mean? A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration, she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. Love. I finished her sentence. No matter what form it takes. Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration. Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project. We have time, she smiled, holding my hand. We have so much time. In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future, I whispered softly. Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life? Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. I will. Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said. Love does not disappear. It merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.